Hey, Chris Grove with you for another film review. Today we are doing The Toy from 1982. The Toy was directed by Richard Donner, yes, of Lethal Weapon and Superman fame, and stars Richard Pryor as Jack Brown, Scott Schwartz as Eric Bates, Jackie Gleason as U.S. Bates, Ned Beatty, Sidney Morehouse, Teresa Ganzel as Fancy Bates, and Annazette Chase as Angela. Alright, so this movie is about a rich white man who hires an out-of-work black journalist to be his son's friend, or toy, as they would call it in this movie. And that's what this movie is about. He basically, the character of Jackie Gleason, he's a rich Louisiana mogul. He has a voluptuous wife, shall we say, Fancy Bates. And he's got his son, Eric Bates, he shares custody with, apparently. And it's almost like if Donald Trump ran Louisiana instead of New York back in the day, and he had Barron, and Barron was the rich kid who basically had hired Richard Pryor to be his friend or toy, if you will. It's almost like that kind of dynamic in this movie. And it's an interesting dynamic. It shows a lot about class, a lot about race. It could not be made today for several reasons. The movie starts out with Richard Pryor looking for work as a journalist, and he's having trouble nailing down a gig as a journalist. So he's trying different things and odd jobs, and he ends up getting fired from being a cleaning lady, because he's got a mustache, by U.S. Bates. And he's hanging around the department store, and he's screwing around with this thing called a Wonder Wheel. And the Wonder Wheel is like this circular inflatable thing that you stand in and it'll start to spin and like goes down the aisle. And in the meantime, the staff, U.S. Bates' staff, is taking the kid Eric, also known as Master Bates, because they all go by Master. And the kid falls in love with Richard Pryor's character, because he's watching him like screw around with this Wonder Wheel and it deflates. He's like, "No, Wonder Wheel, And so they're like, "Hey," and Morehouse, who's U.S. Bates' chief assistant, wonderfully played by Ned Beatty, says, "So Eric, what do you want in the store?" He goes, I want the black man. He goes, okay, he wants a Wonder Wheel, but in black, because he doesn't hear him correctly. He couldn't possibly say he wanted the black man. He goes, no, I want the black man. He goes, no, Eric, you can't buy humans. He's a human being, Eric. You can't buy him. And then he's like, I want him. And he's like, okay, well, let's go talk to him, see if we can negotiate a deal and see how much, if we can hire him, right? So they start throwing money at Richard Pryor. And at first he's like, no, I'm not being this kid's toy or plaything or friend or whatever, no, this isn't happening. After a while, they start throwing more money at him and he breaks down and he's like, okay, I do need the cash. Fine, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, great. Let me present to you Master Bates. And Richard Pryor goes, Master Bates! Which is my Richard Pryor impression. Anyway, it's a funny movie. It's great. And they form a real friendship as things progress. And a lot of hilarious stuff ensues because he's a bratty kid at first and he's acting out, and there's a scene where Richard Pryor is sitting there with all the other toys in the room wearing Spider-Man PJs that Eric also has Spider-Man PJs, but he's sitting there with all the other toys going, you know what? You guys are out of sync, okay? You're not hip anymore. Because now you've all been replaced by the Jack Brown wind-up asshole. And there's a scene where he's like, I want my clothes, I want to get out of here. He's got to deal with a horny German maid, or well, she's like a horny German caretaker of Eric's. She's in charge of his bath and brushing his teeth and all that stuff. But she's totally coming on to Jack. And he's just like, and Jack is a married man. And his wife is an activist. And we see that happen in a later scene where she kind of is protesting U.S. Bates. He's doing a fundraiser. And he's got a Louisiana senator and the Grand Wizard of the KKK there. And he's like, what is he doing? Well, U.S. Bates is trying to get a picture of the senator and the Grand Wizard of the KKK together to use as blackmail for the senator so he can bribe him or blackmail him later. That's why he's doing that. But in the meantime, Eric and Jack show up in go-karts and kind of ruin the whole affair. So that's one of their shenanigans. The other thing is Jack is interested in journalism, of course, and tries to get Eric into journalism. And so after the bratty phase of this whole movie, he goes, hey, why don't we put together a paper? We'll use your dad's press and all that stuff, and, we can do stories about your dad and his wife and his empire here. And, of course, they uncover some corruption because, U.S. Bates isn't always on the up and up. And there's some embarrassing things that he would not like to be put out there. And, of course, Jack and Eric uncover those embarrassing things. And there's a wonderful scene where he calls them into the office after they've printed out all these stories. He goes, you're going to retract all this. And they're like, no, we're not. And they're like, yeah, you are. And he goes, I am reality. I print what you tell me, or you print what I tell you to print. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that. He goes, no. He goes, and he turns to Morehouse. He goes, Morehouse, take your pants down. He goes, I have to, sir, if you value your job, yeah. So he takes his pants down. And he goes, that's reality. I'm reality. And as they're leaving the room, Richard Pryor turns to Morehouse, Beatty's character, and says, is it really that bad out there in the job market? He goes, worse. Anyway, it does show, again, that class disparity and some race disparity. And there's so satisfying moments where he catches up with the Grand Wizard of the KKK and with his go-kart and makes him go flying into a giant Eskimo pie, which is kind of funny. Very slapsticky, kind of shticky, but a lot of the jokes actually do land and they are funny. Again, this could not be made today because, buying a black man to be your kid's toy, you're hiring him, but still, there's some connotations there. Even in 82, it was a little, we're skating on thin ice here, fellas. But the comedic chemistry between Richard Pryor and Jackie Gleason is amazing. And the relationship between Jack and the kid is amazing. So much so that, he's teaching the kid how to walk on stilts and the kid is asking him about sex. And I love Richard Pryor's delivery in that one. He goes, Jesus, does your dad tell you anything? Does your old man tell you anything? And obviously, this rubs off on U.S. Bates, and he goes, wow, okay, this guy is really reaching my son where I couldn't reach my son. And it really is about a black man teaching a rich white dude how to relate to his son, and vice versa. And that's really what this movie's about. And it's endearing, and it's great. But it's not exactly politically correct at all, especially in 2026. So, again, couldn't really be made today, or it could. Why not take a chance on something like this? But I would not remake this movie because it's the best, and I'm not really one for remakes, so don't remake this movie. That being said, I think everyone should check out this movie. It is a great movie. It's a lot of fun. And check out The Toy from 1982. And till next time, this is Chris Grow. Be sure to like and subscribe. And life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, so live it.